went into today's transcribed interview with Hunter Biden. We had a dozen witnesses who had told us that Joe Biden was not involved in any way in Hunter's business, that he did not profit from Hunter's business, and that he rendered no official favors or benefits to Hunter's business. And nothing that we've heard from Hunter Biden has changed that in any way. In fact, he has emphatically and repeatedly underscored to the Republicans that his father was not involved in any way in his businesses, did not profit from his businesses, and Hunter neither asked him for any official favors nor received any official favors from Joe Biden. So what we saw, I think, was a rather embarrassing spectacle where the Republicans continued to belabor completely trivial points. They seem to be obsessively focused on speakerphones and use of speakerphone. I did not know that that was the devil's technology, but apparently it is. I believe, based on this first hour, that this whole thing really has been a tremendous waste of our legislative time and the people's resources. But I would love to have each of my colleagues come up and share their sense of what we just witnessed. And we'll start with the vice-ranking member of the Oversight Committee, and then we'll go to
Sure thing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ranking Member Raskin. I think the Ranking Member stated it completely. What we just witnessed over the last hour was, I think, a deep-sea fishing expedition, because the Republican case has completely fallen apart over the last several weeks. After it's been exposed that the critical, one of their most key pieces of information was based on a source that was in communication with Russian intelligence, they are now trying to scramble to find anything to substantiate their fairy tale, is what we should call this. But I think more disturbingly, what we are seeing is just a complete and inappropriate expedition into the president's son, and for matters and subjects that are completely unrelated to an impeachment investigation. And I think it is extremely disturbing to see the lack of professionalism, the lack of grounding, and the abuse of public resources and abuse of public power in order to pursue something that truly, whose point at this juncture is very unclear. And with that, I hand it back.
Mr. Swalwell, the Judiciary Committee.
Thank you. They've got nothing. That's what we just witnessed for the last hour. One of their witnesses has been indicted for working with Russian intelligence. Another witness has been indicted for working with Chinese intelligence. Another witness is serving a 14-year felony sentence. This is 4th and 20 on their own 10, and they don't have Patrick Mahomes. You're going to see the greatest sack ever when you get the transcript from this. But what's really embarrassing, and I use the word secondhand embarrassment because that's what we witnessed in there, is they're so desperate to humiliate the president that they started asking the president's son personal details about a divorce that happened almost 10 years ago. That's where this has been reduced to. And they're doing all this, by the way, when we're just days away from the government shutting down. We're critically in need of funding for Ukraine, the humanitarian crisis over in the Middle East, and more security and a broader immigration plan in this country. They're wasting time, squandering an opportunity to do that, because they've never accepted Joe Biden as the president. And now, in this last Hail Mary effort, they're going to try and pull off something. I promise you, past this prologue, it's not going to work.
All right, let's go back to the oversight side. Dan Goldman.
Sure, I'll be brief. I want to be very clear. That first hour of this much anticipated testimony was the nail in the coffin to what is a complete bogus and sham impeachment inquiry. Not only were they unable to show any connection between Hunter Biden's business and President Biden, but Hunter Biden gave very detailed and clear explanations as to what his arm's-length business transactions were with private parties in foreign countries who are investors and business people, like many people would have. He went through a laundry list of board seats and jobs that he has had over his 30-year career after he left Yale Law School, and he withstood some inappropriate attacks even in the first hour. So it is not simply there's no connection to the president, which we've known all along and which was made clear again, but there is a very understandable, coherent business explanation for every single thing that they asked for. And now that all of this China stuff or Romania or Kazakhstan is clearly baseless and bogus, the only thing that the Republicans have left are these Burisma allegations, which we now know were completely made up by their source, who's now been indicted because he was working with Russian intelligence to interfere in our election. And so let's be very clear, because that is the only basis to move forward with an impeachment inquiry. If this impeachment inquiry continues, then Chairman Comer and Chairman Jordan are working with Russia to interfere in the November 2024 election on behalf of Vladimir Putin for the benefit of Donald Trump. That is what this has been reduced to now, and that is what this first hour showed us.
All right. Ms. Stansbury from New Mexico.
Thank you. Good morning. I think it's obvious to any of us who were in the room this morning why the Republicans did not want this to be public testimony, because there is literally no evidence and no there. And not only that, the embarrassing spectacle, lack of professionalism, the lack of coherent, even theory of the case this morning was so glaringly apparent that it is embarrassing for the Republicans right now. For anyone who listened to what happened, you all will hear the testimony or see the testimony in written form, hopefully in the coming days, if the Republicans do carry forward with the agreement that they made with Hunter Biden's attorney. However, it's very clear that there's no evidence of any wrongdoing that connects the president to his son, any of his business dealings, and anything that has anything to do that leads to an impeachable offense. It's been stated, but this is very clearly a smoke and mirrors strategy intended to essentially try to indict the president for things that he's not even involved in. So it's very clear that there's no there.
Thank you. Mr. Moskowitz.
Thank you, Chairman Raskin. Soon to be Chairman Raskin, very soon. Let me just say that I think my colleagues and I are witnessing the death of the fake, faux, frivolous Joe Biden impeachment inquiry. In fact, as a Jewish American, when this is over, I will say mourner's Kaddish for this impeachment inquiry. There has been no evidence on Joe Biden from the beginning. There has been no evidence so far in this deposition linking Joe Biden at all. So as Jay-Z said, grand opening, grand closing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Greg Kassar from Texas.
We all thought after the first sham impeachment hearing, where Republican witness after Republican witness says there was no evidence of any wrongdoing by President Joe Biden, that they would give up, that they would stop embarrassing themselves. But the Republican majority continued on. We all thought that after their key witness was indicted for lying to the FBI about Hunter Biden and was meeting with Russian intelligence, that they would stop degrading themselves, that they would stop debasing themselves. But at Donald Trump's behest, they've continued on. And now, really, I cannot believe that they have found a new low. It is so embarrassing to sit in the room for an hour while they try to weave conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory that only embarrasses them further. So, as the as members of Congress on the Oversight Committee, our job is to be defenders of the truth. Not for one presidential candidate or another, but to defend the truth. And the baseline truth that we have found is that the Republican majority are gluttons for punishment. They will continue to find new lows that the American people didn't think were even possible just because Donald Trump wants them to. And so it is really such a shame. If it weren't so shameful, it would be funny. But unfortunately, it's really tragic that the majority in the House of Representatives of the U.S. Congress will continue to debase themselves, degrade themselves, and ultimately degrade their office in this way.
Thank you. Mr. Conley from Virginia.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say this is a feckless enterprise and a desperate attempt by our Republicans to salvage something of a totally discredited inquiry. I go back to what Mr. Swalwell said. Remember, This is all predicated on testimony originally provided them by 4 witnesses, one of whom is in jail, one of whom has been accused of being a Chinese spy, and the third one also in jail for lying to the FBI and possibly being an agent of Russian intelligence. What committee in Congress wants to hang its hat on that kind of evidence and that kind of basis? Enough said.
Very nice. Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. Well, I think we've learned 2 things. The first is that there's absolutely zero evidence linking Hunter Biden's business dealings to the president. We knew that already. And the second thing that's really important here is a reaffirmation that Republicans apparently hate parents and sons and families that talk to each other by phone often. The one thing that was relatable to a lot of us is that we learned again that, yes, of course, the president and his son have a good, warm, personal relationship, and yes, they talk by phone, and yes, they care and love each other, and that's not something the Republicans should continue to attack over and over and over again. There is zero evidence linking, again, the president to Hunter Biden's business.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Ms. Brown from Ohio.
Thank you very much. Again, we're in another place. It's like deja vu, a repeat performance of another failed mission of our Republican colleagues to try to attempt to damage our president, and with the distraction of his son, who has admitted to doing things wrong, but nothing affiliated with the president's behavior and his performance. We really should be focused on issues that relate to funding our government. This month-to-month deal that we've been doing to run the free world is not effective. We need to be focusing on getting our resources to our Democratic allies, but instead our Republican colleagues continue to embarrass themselves by presenting nothing but burgers to the public. So we'll continue to fight for the people to make sure we get the resources to the constituents that need them the most. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. You remind me that the very moving part of his introduction was when Hunter Biden said, "My mistakes were my own and not those of my father." Ms. Crockett.
You know, I'm just waiting on the point that the American people, in the words of my amazing soror, Fannie Lou Hamer, get to the point that they are sick and tired of being sick and tired. I mean, here's the reality. You're talking about an impeachment inquiry, and we know that Republicans could care less about facts. That is the reason that I said in the hearing in which we were going over whether or not they were going to find Hunter in contempt, I said the reason he would not want to testify behind closed doors is because all they do is lie. And I can tell you there is some lie that they are working on spinning coming up out of here. But let me tell you something. They have done nothing more than lie to the American people over and over and over, and they don't care. And it's because the American people, for whatever reason, are not sick and tired of being sick and tired. Because here's the deal. We have an impeachment that is now pending against Mayorkas, yet we still don't have the high crime nor the misdemeanor. They don't care about facts. They don't care about facts at all. We do. And maybe that's the problem with the Democrats right now. Because we do care about facts, because we thought that they mattered, but clearly they don't. All they want is a spectacle, and the spectacle right now is putting us in a sense of danger, not just in this country, but in this world. It is putting our allies in danger, because right now what they're doing is they're peddling Russian lies. Basically, the Republicans have become synonymous for Russians at this point. It is a disgrace, and I'm just imploring the people to become sick and tired of being sick and tired. Because let me tell you, if there was something that they could tie this president to, I would be the first one to be upset, because I am an American first. I was elected by my district to represent them as U.S. citizens. I wasn't here to do the peddling of any president. But at this point in time, just like the BS that we see going on with the other impeachment, there is nothing more than BS. And we know that you can't have something that is built on a house of cards. We know that there is no foundation. So the fact that we even showed up today, and we showed up early, and it wasn't to make sure that we could keep the lights in the government open. That's not why we showed up early. We showed up early because they wanted to take an opportunity to take punches at the president's son. And I am going to re-urge the American people to recognize we're talking about his son. We're talking about someone who is an actual citizen, just a regular citizen. We're not talking about somebody who could not pass a background check. yet somehow ended up being appointed to his administration. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a son that was struggling, a son that lost his mom, a son that lost his brother, a son that lost his sister, a son that has had a father that has been in politics since he was 2 years old. This has been his life. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he can't do. I'm telling you that this is a waste of time, and we need to get back to this people's work. I am tired. The Republicans are going to lose the House, and y'all run this back for them when they do. They're going to lose the House because they have lost focus of what our job is, and our job is to take care of the American people, and that's the last thing that they've done.
Thank you, Ms. Crockett. And our distinguished colleague from the Judiciary Committee, Ms. Escobar.
Thank you so much. I was about to call you chairman as well.
That's all right.
I want to thank my colleagues for the incredible job that they have done over this lengthy impeachment process, this sham that really the Republicans should be absolutely embarrassed by and ashamed of. But I think it's important to emphasize the recklessness of what is happening here today. Not only are we jeopardizing the institutions that the American people depend on, but this is nothing more than a distraction from what Republicans don't want us to pay attention to. They don't want us to pay attention to the fact that they cannot govern. They are absolutely either unable or unwilling to govern. They need to get back to the business at hand, which is funding the government. We're standing here on the eve of a government shutdown. Standing here on the eve of telling the American people that agencies will be shuttered, people won't get paid, and a really an unnecessary decline in our ability to deliver for the American people, and it all is because of the GOP. They are also turning their backs not just on the business at hand for the American people, but on our allies. I had the incredible privilege of meeting with President Zelensky during the Munich Security Conference, and the world is watching us. The world is depending on us to stand with our allies, get that security package to the floor, and do our job. So I stand with my colleagues proudly. There is absolutely no evidence. We need to get back to work. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. We're just going to close out with Max Frost. We have to go back to our deposition. So, Max, if you could close this out.
Yeah, I'll just be very quick. Look, if you ever wonder why 50% of this country doesn't vote, you don't have to look further than the hour we just spent in there on this deposition. If you wonder why a lot of this country doesn't hold Congress in a high regard, don't look further than the hour we just had in this deposition. A fishing expedition, like Vice Ranking Member Ocasio-Cortez just brought up, looking into things that, number one, have nothing to do with the president, spending 10 minutes talking about the technology of a speakerphone, spending multiple minutes talking about a rope line interaction. There is no evidence. This entire thing is built off of a lie. And I'll tell you, we knock a lot of doors back at home. People don't care about this. They want us to work on affordable housing. They want us to work on health care, ending gun violence, ending the climate crisis, ensuring that we save lives around the world. These are the things that people care about, not this. So let's get back to work, and I hope that this will be the end of this horrible experiment.
Mr. Frost, what are they saying about the speakerphone?